Om Shri Krishnaya Paramatmane Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Pathanjali Yoga Sutram. Vibhoothi Pada. We have now come to the chapter which is called the chapter of powers. In this chapter, in the first few sutras, Pathanjali continues with the last three limbs of Ashtanga Yoga, namely Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi. And after that, he explains the extraordinary powers that a yogi is likely to attain by way of proper sadhana. He also mentions in this same pada about the dangers of getting diverted or distracted by these powers from the ultimate goal, which is liberation or moksha. Now let us plunge into the Vibhoothi Pada. Sutram 1. Desha bandhaschittasya dharana. Dharana is holding the mind on to some particular object. Dharana, concentration, is when the mind holds on to some object, either in the body or outside the body, and keeps itself in that state. Sutram 2. Tatra pratyayika tanata dhyanam. An unbroken flow of knowledge to that object is dhyana. The mind tries to think of one object, to hold itself to one particular spot as the top of the head, the heart, etc. And if the mind succeeds in receiving the sensations only through that part of the body and through no other part, that would be dharana. And when the mind succeeds in keeping itself in that state for some time, it is called dhyana. Sutram 3. Tadevartha matra nirbhasam swarupa shunyam iva samadhihi. When that giving up all forms reflects only the meaning, it is samadhi. That is, when in meditation all forms are given up. Suppose I were meditating on a book and that I have gradually succeeded in concentrating the mind on it and perceiving only the internal sensations, the meaning unexpressed in any form, that state of dhyana is called samadhi. Sutram 4. Trayam ekarta samyamaha. These three, when practiced in regard to one object, is samyama. When a man can direct his mind to any particular object and fix it there, and then keep it there for a long time, separating the object from the internal part, it is called samyama, or dharana, dhyana and samadhi, one following the other and making one. The form of the thing has vanished and only its meaning remains in the mind. Sutram 5. Tadjayat prajnalokaha. By the conquest of that comes light of knowledge. When one has succeeded in making this samyama, all powers come under his control. This is the great instrument of the yogi. The object of knowledge are infinite, and they are divided into the gross, grosser, grossest, and the fine, finer, finest, and so on. This samyama should be first applied to gross things When you begin to get knowledge of the gross, slowly by stages it should be brought to finer things. Sutram 6. Tasya bhumisu vinyogaha. That should be employed in stages. This is a note of warning not to attempt to go too fast. Sutram 7. Trayam antarangam purvebhyaha. These three are nearer than those that precede. Before these, we had the pranayama, the asana, and yama and niyama. These are external parts of these three: dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Yet these later even are external to the seedless samadhi. When a man has attained to them, he may attain to omniscience and omnipresence, but that would not be salvation. These three would not make the mind nirvikalpa, changeless, but would leave the seeds for getting bodies again. Only when the seeds are, as the yogi says, fried, do they lose the possibility of producing further plants. These powers cannot fry the seed. Sutram 8. Tatapi bahirangam nirbijasya. But even they are external to the seedless samadhi. Compared with that seedless samadhi, therefore even these are external. We have not yet reached the real samadhi, the highest, but to a lower stage in which this universe still exists as we see it, and in which are all these powers. Sutram 9. Vyuthana nirodha samskarayo abhibhava pradur bhavav nirodha kshana chitta anvayaha nirodha parinamaha. By suppression of the disturbed modifications of the mind and by the rise of modifications of control, the mind is said to attain the controlling modifications, following the controlling powers of the mind. That is to say, in this first state of samadhi, the modifications of the mind have been controlled, but not perfectly, because if they were, there would be no modifications. If there is a modification which impels the mind to rush out through the senses, and the yogi tries to control it, that very control itself will be a modification. One wave will be checked by another wave, so it will not be real samadhi. When all the waves have subsided, as control itself will be a wave. Yet this lower samadhi is very much nearer to the higher samadhi than when the mind comes bubbling out. Sutram 10. Tasya prashanta vahita samskarat. Its flow becomes steady by habit. The flow of this continuous control of the mind becomes steady when practices day after day and the mind obtains the faculty of constant concentration. This completes Sutrams 1 to 10 of Vibhoothi Pada. Pathanjali talks about dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, the last three limbs of Ashtanga Yoga, in these sutrams. Samastaloka Sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.